Okay, well, we find ourselves in one of those positions where plans were made, plans were disrupted, and so we're on to our recovery plan, or second set of plans, or as one of my guys calls it at the office, Plan Z. So isn't that when the zombies come? So let's get this rolling. I'll come back and tell you all about it. Okay, so here's what you need to know. I had a plan A. My plan A was I was going to be part of the way up to Montana by now. It's Friday of Labor Day weekend. And one of my employees came in and worked in the office part of the weekend, has COVID. So obviously I can't be going up to visit the folks up there without knowing that I'm not gonna take a little surprise up there to them. So got a test, wait and get results. I'm kind of self-isolating myself in the garage here, so that'll be okay. I have the engine, the old engine, sitting right here next to me in the box, and I did get a hold of the guys at S&J. I emailed them and I said, what about strapping it back up inside of the box? And he said, oh yeah, you have to satisfy the trucking company's requirements, it does need to be wrapped in plastic as it was when it came out, and it does have to be banded or wired or roped or something down to the pallet. So he's like, you got to do something. So I do have a little bit of work to do on that to prep that to go back to those guys. But then he said, then just let us know when it's ready and we'll make arrangements to have it come picked up. So I got that to do. Transmission transfer case. How many times have I mentioned those silly things? They are still out there. I'm going to pull those in. I'm going to clean them up, drain them out, get them all ready to go, look at them myself. Maybe I can just do my own seals on them. We'll see, because I'm obviously not making much progress at getting those to a shop. So maybe that's the universe trying to tell me that I should just do the seals myself. We'll see. And then lastly, we've got that treatment we need to do for the rear end, getting the breather in there. I do have to get my brake lines situated as well while I'm under there. So this may be the weekend where we lift the tub up a little bit, so we've got a little breathing space to work under there. So then following that, I did prime the oil pan for the new block. I'll gather up like the bell housing, get it cleaned up and get a coat of primer on it so it's ready to go. As I start working on the new block, I'm gonna kind of clean off the existing paint because it's kind of oily, and so if I do, paint it, I want that to bond up there. It is painted black now, but I will probably clean it, dry it off really good, get some acetone maybe, and get all the oil off of it, and then maybe slap a coat of primer on that, so everything's at least the same look as I start to put it back together, and then we'll make that decision of block color, what color we're going to do. I am really probably leaning towards blue. I really have seen that. I went back and found that guy who painted his stuff blue, and I do kind of like the looks of that. But either blue or red, I'm sure it'll be one or the other of those. So lots to do. Looks like you're gonna have no trouble filling this weekend, and it looks like, given the situation, that I should just be staying here. So I'm just gonna tear into it. Let's go get some stuff done, shall we? So one of the things I kind of like about a project like rebuilding a Jeep in your garage is, unlike the projects that I do to make a living, in which there's a very strict order of things that has to happen from point A to point B, and there's very strict timelines and things that got to be done on time. When you're doing your own rebuild, you can kind of go at your own pace, and when your plans get a little wiggled around, you can just roll with it and just decide, well, here's what I'm going to work on. So here's how I'm easing myself into my Saturday. I've got a cup of coffee in my hand. I did pull the transmission transfer case in out of the Jeep graveyard over there. I'll show you the floor over here, because what happened is I've got those on my little homemade cart where I just bought some casters at Home Depot and a piece of plywood, screwed the casters to the bottom of the plywood, and I've had the transmission transfer case on those so I can move them around. And I've had them in a garbage bag, or a lawn and garden bag, so I've had them sealed up inside of those bags. Well, as I brought the things in, the transmission tipped over off the bag, or off the cart, as I was kind of taking it out of the bag and so forth, and the top of the transmission is open where the shift lever goes down in there. So I had a Exxon Valdez size oil spill here in the garage. So I had to run down to AutoZone and get me a couple bags of oil absorber, and I've got that spread out on the floor here. So I got a little cleanup to do this morning. I'll show you that first. I did pick up the transmission on the engine hoist so that I could hover it over my bucket of used oil, and I drained it. And you know what? I think I'm just gonna work this thing over myself. I'm gonna look around and see. I mean, there's only 2 gaskets, it looks like, that goes on there. There's one for the top plate where the shifter goes in, the shifting forks, obviously. And then there's a little access panel on the side. I'm not really sure what's in there yet, but even if I can't get the exact gasket set for that, I think I could get me just a sheet of gasket paper and just cut my own gaskets. So I think I'm gonna tear into this transmission and transfer case and see if I can't get them cleaned up and look at seals. Again, looking at the transmission, there's not really many places that it can leak. So I think it'll mostly be the transfer case, and maybe it might be that I get the transmission all handled and I just take the transfer case into somebody, have them put new seals in it. We'll see. That's what I'm gonna do. So after I have a little more coffee, I'm gonna do that. After. All right, well, I just thought I'd show you the breather. Remember all my discussion about breathers and how I'm planning on taking the one out of the kit that came with the ARB thing. Well, this is the breather that's in the transfer case, or excuse me, the transmission. And you can see basically all it is a little tube with this little sleeve of steel kind of pressed around the top of it. So yeah, that's not going to keep any water out. And then the other thing I have taken out right up here is the electric sending unit for the reverse. So I'm going to just thread that in to close up the hole, and then we're going to put a little primer on this side of the Jeep, or of the transmission. So there's that, and there's my bell housing painted. That is the transfer case. Haven't got to that yet. They're in that bucket right there, which probably won't be able to see very well, but this is the throwout bearing arm, and that's the throwout bearing. And then there's a little ball that goes in that spot right there. I have that, but probably we'll put a new throwout bearing on there, and then obviously our little rubber gasket thing that goes around that clutch or that bearing lever is pretty much toast. That goes right here on the bell housing. So a little more painting to do, and we'll get this other half looking like the other half and see how it looks. All right, well, so begins another day out here. You saw where we're at with everything that's been primered so far. I ran out of primer, so I stopped at the parts place, and I got me some more rattle cans of primer. So my goal today is to get that transfer case cleaned up and primered up just like the rest of this stuff. So it's going to be another messy day. I've already got my dirty clothes on from last time. I didn't bother washing them. I just slid out of them, left them in a nasty oily pile on the floor so I could peel right back into them. So I already feel kind of gross, and it's going to get worse before it gets better. So I sprayed a whole bunch of engine cleaner on that transfer case, and I left it kind of sitting in a catch pan there. So we're going to see how that thing cleans up and see if we can get it kind of in that same shape as the transmission. So let's do that. All right, well, I have cleaned up and sprayed a coat of primer on kind of half of the transfer case. And it might seem a little premature because you see some parts in the back there that are still dirty and rusty and stuff. But let me just tell you, in order to kind of see what's done and what's good and clean, you kind of have to do this occasionally. So you'll find once you get a little primer on there, like down in that little spot right there, you can see a little build up there where I missed some. So this kind of gives you, a visual clue of where you need to do a little more cleaning. And then as you get on the other side, you can kind of see what you've done and what's left to do. So now it's time to vacate the garage because this stuff is stanky. So we gotta let this air out for a bit, and then we'll come back and attack that other side some more. So when I was a young lad, I used to have to share a bedroom with my older brother, and that meant we had to share like a full-size bed or a queen-size bed or something. And he would come over from the wall, being the older brother, he was in charge. So he would come over from the wall about 6 inches, and he'd draw an imaginary border down that bed, and he would say that I had to stay on that other side of that border or he'd hit me. So I always get kind of cracked up when I have imaginary borders, and I have just such an imaginary border in the garage right now, this joint line right here. As long as when I wrap up the weekend I leave this side open, then I know I can pull the car in at night. So success there. I'll be able to park the car in here. I have the transfer case half done, and that's about enough for tonight. I'm going to go watch Formula One race with my daughter, and I will work on this next week. So it's going to be one of those short weeks, yeah, because it was Labor Day today, so today's actually Monday. So anyway, putting a wrapper on this one, putting it in the can, and when I come back, I think we'll be at the point where, well, I got to order my clutch. So I'm going to order a clutch tomorrow, but as soon as I get my clutch in, then I think we're ready to put the flywheel back on the new block and get the bell housing on there, get the transmission mated up, get the transfer case ready to go. So we're going to start reassembling that in preparation for putting her back in the chassis there. So that's exciting. So I'll leave it here for now. Thanks for watching, and don't go anywhere. We got a lot of stuff to do, but we're getting to the really fun parts now. So stick with me.